Hey guys, Brian Schroeder here and Suzanne Luther with FasterFunds Lending. We are going to be talking about construction dispersing this month.
Super exciting topic.
It is an exciting topic. I think it's a topic that a lot of our borrowers don't understand very well. So
Yes,
I think it is
it's a
an
very important topic.
yes, because dispersing can be, I don't know, a little bit of a pain, and we want to make it as easy as possible and
Yep,
work as effectively as possible. But we also want to give people the option to be able to borrow rehab funds, and this is the option to do it with, right?
yep, correct.
So anyway, let's just I'm just going to ask you a bunch of questions, and we'll just walk through it.
Perfect.
So what is construction dispersing? How would you define it?
Construction dispersing is basically a company that is holding your rehab funds in an escrow account. And as work is being completed, materials are installed, they're then distributing that money out to you and your contractors.
Perfect. And to even take it one step back just a little bit farther, when we lend money to somebody and we're lending, I'm just going to use random numbers here. Let's say it's a $100,000 purchase and a $50,000 rehab, and we're going to lend the whole thing.
Yep.
So we're going to take 150,000 to the title company.
Mhm.
100,000 of that's going to be used for the purchase, and that other 50,000 is going to be transferred, I guess, I don't know if that's the right word,
Yep.
to a dispersing company.
Yes.
So our money's already lent out. The
Correct.
100%, all of it.
All of it. Yeah.
And I think sometimes I've heard a little bit of confusion about why am I paying interest on money I haven't borrowed yet? But
Yeah.
that's why, right?
Yeah, it's because we're paying interest
Yes,
on that.
exactly.
And the whole point of us doing that is because sometimes people say, well, why are you giving it to the dispersing company so soon? The reason is actually to protect you all, because you all know we're not doing anything sketchy,
Sure.
and we're ensuring that that 50 grand is allocated to you. We're
Yes.
not going to go and be like, oh, we're a little tight
Lend
on
it out to
funds, we're
somebody
going to give
else.
someone else, and then you go to take the draw and we're like, oh, sorry, we don't actually have that money here.
Right.
So the benefit of that is it benefits both of us mutually. It
Yeah.
benefits the client because they know that 50 grand is there. But then it also benefits us because it's a great way to protect ourselves, because if we just stroked you all a check for 50 grand at closing, you guys could go take a trip to Bermuda or
Right on.
go travel Europe. You're not guaranteed to, put that back in the property. So it's a way to also protect us and our loan to make sure those funds are being used as they're supposed to for the property.
Perfect. So at closing, this third-party dispersing company, and there's a few of them in the St. Louis area, they have the rehab funds. And can you kind of talk through with that after that, kind of what happens next?
Yeah, so at closing, you're going to sign a dispersing agreement that's between you and the dispersing company. The dispersing company that you're using is affiliated with the title company that you're closing at. So, for example, if you're closing with True Title, you're going to use QDraw for dispersing. If you're closing with Investors, Insight, Freedom, Vision, you're going to be using Accurate. And then if you're closing with Old Republic or Continental, they have their own in-house dispersing. It's called Old Republic Dispersing and Continental Dispersing. All of them are going to have their own internal process. So that part is going to be a little bit, we're going to leave that purposely a little vague here because it's going to be dependent on them. But what you're going to do is whenever so much work has been completed, not the whole project, if you're doing 50 grand worth of work, you do not have to take what's called a draw at the end of the project.
Yeah.
You're supposed to take a draw every few weeks. So let's say you've started the project, you've demoed it, you've got your rough-in plumbing and electric completed. That might be a great opportunity to take your first draw. So what you'll do is you'll provide receipts and lien waivers showing that the work has been done and your contractor has been paid, and then you can get reimbursed. The other option is if you would like your electrician and plumber to be paid directly, you can make that known, and your electrician and plumber can actually bring the lien waiver to the dispersing company, sign the lien waiver there as they collect the check to keep them protected. Because most contractors aren't going to sign a lien waiver before they've been paid. That defeats the purpose. So you kind of have the option of either paying yourself back or have the contractors being paid directly.
Perfect. Can you talk to, when I've dealt with some people, there's been a little bit of confusion about how detailed to make that, the
The budget.
The budget. That's good.
Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't come up with that word there for a second. How detailed? How do you recommend somebody put together their budget to give to the dispersing company so it works efficiently, getting paid back?
Yeah, so that's a great point. That's really like the first step is to create your budget because that's going to be what goes to the dispersing company, and they're going to utilize that when they're looking at how they're going to allocate money because what they want to do is make sure that you're staying on budget. If you just start willy-nilly taking 50 grand and they don't know what it's supposed to be for, it's hard for them to see, like, are you keeping the project on track? Are you going over? So when you're preparing that initial budget, the best advice I can give to people is to make those categories pretty broad. So when I say broad, I mean, let's say you're redoing the kitchen. So you've got cabinets that you're doing, you're, getting handle pulls, you're getting appliances, you're putting new flooring in, you're putting backsplash. Those should not be 5 separate categories. Make it one. Call it just kitchen. And then in parentheses put, you can put kitchen and you can say what you mean, like cabinets, appliances, backsplash, stuff like that. But you're only creating one budget line item for that. Same thing with bathrooms. I would put bathrooms and put how many bathrooms you're doing and what that means, and then just put one budgetary number for that. The purpose of that is so, a lot of times, like we live in a world where costs are kind of ever changing and in flux, and you might find an awesome deal, on cabinets, let's say, and you work with your cabinet person, you get a great deal on them, so maybe it came in a little less, and maybe your bathroom expenses came in a little less, but you found out you have to replace a plumbing stack, which wasn't in your budget. You can more easily move those funds around when you go to change up your budget and just say, hey, title company, or hey, dispersing company, we actually came in under budget on these 2 categories, but found this unexpected expense. So we'd like to pull money from here and put it over here.
That makes sense. Are there any other issues that you see a lot of borrowers are having when they're working with dispersing companies? Anything come to mind for you?
Yeah, I think a few are the timeline of everything.
Okay.
That's sometimes a confusing thing, and to be honest, it's going to change a little bit. So I think it's really important to be very clear with the dispersing company. I always encourage people. I heard this from a borrower who's had a lot of success with a dispersing company. What he does is he submits everything, on, let's say, on a Thursday. And then Friday morning, he actually sends them another follow-up email just being like, hey, want to ensure that I submitted everything I was supposed to. I believe I have everything in there. If I missed something, let me know. It's a great way to stay on top of their mind to make sure that they don't lose track of your draw. And just kind of politely checking in. When you yell at the dispersing company, they're not going to work any harder for you. So just remember to be patient. If you submit all your paperwork clearly, you're going to have a much better success of getting a faster turnaround than if your paperwork is all over the place and you're not providing all the things that they're asking. So trying to keep that really clear is super beneficial. I think some other things that people don't understand when they're dealing with dispersing is, let's say you have a roofer. Your roofer comes in and he installs your roof. So naturally, you're getting a lien waiver in receipt from your roofer. The thing that you're not thinking about is that you actually have to also get a receipt and lien waiver from the material provider of the shingles. So the same thing applies like for siding or for windows. The reason it is required is because your roofer guy might not have paid the supplier where they got the shingles, and that shingle company can then put a lien on your house. So I think that's very confusing for a lot of people. I know I had a client who was a little frustrated a couple weeks ago, and he called me and, he was like, Suzanne, I just don't understand why they need this. And I'm like, well, this is why. And we had a situation with one of our loans. It's been a few years now, but our borrower did nothing wrong. He paid everyone appropriately as he should, but the contractor that he hired out the pool work. And the pool guy was never paid, and the pool guy put a lien on the house we were lending on, and that's why we have to do all of these things. And you also have to make sure you're getting a receipt and lien waiver for anyone being paid and doing work on the project. The only thing that you don't need a lien waiver for, which is a little bit I think sometimes people get confused by, is If you're buying a material from a big box store, so let's say Lowe's, Home Depot, Menards, you only need a receipt for them. They're not going, dilling out lien waivers all the
No.
time. Their receipts are good enough. So you'll just provide that. But just make sure if you're, let's say you're buying some tools for the property or you're buying, some Gatorade for you to drink while you're at the project, just make sure to buy that separately. Otherwise, you have to pull those items out of your receipt, which can be annoying.
Can you give just a rough estimate of how much time a borrower should expect when they submit a draw request before they're getting paid? What's kind of typical?
Typical is about 5 business days.
Okay. Okay.
As long 5 business days from when they get all of the appropriate paperwork.
Yeah.
If you're not submitting all the appropriate paperwork, it will take much longer, but it should be about 5 business days. Now, that being said, it is very dependent on the dispersing company. I know, I don't. There's a few dispersing companies I don't encourage, and it's because they will take 2, 3, 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So those are the ones to be leery of, and we're happy to have those conversations with you about that.
So a couple of the maybe little tips that just thinking about while we're talking here. One is, let's say somebody didn't use the broad category of kitchen and just put in kitchen cabinets in their estimate, and they bought the cabinets, but they're sitting in the kitchen, but they're not installed.
Yep.
Will dispersing company disperse on that, or what do you think?
We won't allow them to.
So-
We require that the kitchen cabinets have to be installed. Flooring has to be installed. Whatever materials you're buying have to be installed. The reason we require that is honestly to protect ourselves, because you could easily say, oh, I have all the cabinets here, and then take those cabinets and bring them elsewhere. Or you could demo the whole house, kind of, put it in a bad spot, buy all these materials, and then walk away, and those materials are not worth the same as they are when they're installed. So that's why it's a requirement for us to approve a draw that all materials are installed. The same thing goes for deposits too. We get a lot of calls on, hey, we had to, I'm buying cabinets right now, and I know I have to pay John at premium right away as I order my cabinets. But I can't take a draw on those until the cabinets are installed. Same thing, like window companies will often require a deposit down, things like that. That's okay. You have to pay that, though, out of your own pocket, and then you can get reimbursed once it's installed. The same thing goes if you're paying a contractor. Let's say they want a deposit for some labor. Be really careful with that, but if you're going to pay them a deposit, we cannot pay them until they've done the adequate amount of work to match that.
Awesome. I think that was super helpful. So can we maybe talk just a little bit through when you think is a good idea to use construction dispersing versus what other options there might be for somebody?
Yeah. If you're doing a project, let's say 30,000 or more, and you don't have, a lot of, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I don't have 30 or 40 grand in my bank account. That makes me feel a little tight and uncomfortable. Dispersing is perfect for that. If you are doing a smaller project, let's say 10, 15, 20,000, a lot of times dispersing just isn't worth it because you're only going to take 1 or 2 draws. And the dispersing company is charging you an upfront flat fee for dispersing, whether you take their 5 draws or however many draws they give you or not. So a lot of times, dispersing, there's a cost that third-party provider charges. So it often doesn't make sense to pay the dispersing fee for a smaller project, but it does make sense for a bigger project.
Awesome. So you mentioned a little earlier about some of the different dispersing companies in town in St. Louis here. And I know sometimes a borrower can decide who they're going with and sometimes they can't because they're,
Yep.
But if a borrower does have the option to choose, can you kind of help them decide who to go with?
Yeah. I would say True Title is by far and wide my favorite title company. And they have Q-Draw as their dispersing company. Most people that we work with love Q-Draw. They keep things really easy. What I love about Q-Draw is they're very systemized. Regardless of who you work with at Q-Draw, they're all creating the same expectations, which is really important. So they're definitely, if you have the choice, I would recommend True Title. We have a bunch of phenomenal closers actually in our office in O'Fallon. and they'd be happy to help you out. And then we can get you affiliated with QDraw, send you the contact information, and have you preemptively get a hold of them before closing so that you're ready to rock and roll when you buy that house.
Awesome. I think we covered everything. Did we miss anything?
No, I think that's all the big highlights. And I think
Awesome.
with dispersing, remember to be patient, try to get ahead of it, talk to the company beforehand so you understand that their expectations, and just send them nice check-ins after you submit a draw.
Awesome. See you guys next month.